Is it always so dark?
We're down 3 feet.
It's the most beautiful sight I've ever seen.
So, since I just finished reviewing Don Bluth's worst film, I guess it kind of makes sense for me to review his best one immediately after, right? After all, it is what you guys voted for. This is Don's personal favorite film that he's worked on, and it kind of makes sense for him to say that. It was his first film in the director's chair, he had all the control over it, and it did put him on the map, which helped him form a friendship with Steven Spielberg. However, if I may make a statement, respectively of course, it isn't perfect. I mean, come on, at this point are you even surprising me for saying things like that? I didn't grow up with this movie the same way a lot of you did. I was actually a lot older before I actually watched this movie for the first time, so it's not like I have the rose-tinted glasses on. Not that that even matters. I tend to look at movies for what they actually are when I review them, as opposed to what I thought of them as a child. For example, I used to love Thumbelina growing up, but now I realize it's actually hot garbage. I mean, for fuck's sake, one of the Mexican frogs' name is Gringo. Gringo! I'm dead serious! Yeah, you might as well name the one black kid in your movie the N-word while you're at it. Ugh. But this isn't 90s Don Bluth, no. This is the 80s Don Bluth, when he was in his prime. And what better movie to start with than the one that he wanted Disney to do, but was then turned down. Because that won't be a power move, now will it? The Secret of Nim is based off a book called Mrs. Frisby and the Rats of Nim, written by Robert C. O'Brien. Don originally brought the idea up to then Disney head animator Wolfgang Reitherman, but he decided against the idea, stating, "We already have a mouse, and we've done a mouse movie," referring to The Rescuers. So when Don and his team left Disney, he presented the idea to them, and everybody was on board with it. And in 1982, after about 3 years of hard work, with an estimated budget of about $7 million, The Secret of Nim was released in theaters to an overall decent performance. Yeah, it wasn't exactly Disney numbers, but when you take into account that the movie didn't have a lot of marketing, or even a widespread release, it's still impressive that it still made a little more than double its budget. But, okay, money is one thing, how is the movie itself? Well, if I'm being perfectly honest with you guys, it's still pretty damn good. But I bet you knew that already. Yeah, you all thought, oh no, it's Big Hero 6 again, he hates it. First of all, I don't hate Big Hero 6, the movie, thank you very much. The show, on the other hand, yeah, that shit can go die. Oh, wait, it did! Good. Second off, I honestly don't have that much to add what everyone already knows. It is really good. It's smart, it's dark, it's beautifully animated, the voice acting is great, the characters are most of the characters are great. From pretty much every perspective, this movie is just... yeah, this movie slaps, guys. It slaps. When watching it for the first time, I had a good feeling I would like it, considering it had a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes, and I can't seem to find one person out there who didn't like it. So, when watching it, I kind of wanted to focus on things that I wouldn't like. I don't hear many criticisms of this movie, honestly, so I wanted to see if this truly was the great animated masterpiece that everybody says that it is. There's no such thing as a perfect film, and this movie is no exception. And after watching it again recently, I have found two major problems with this film. Maybe a few nitpicks here and there, but mostly just these two things. So I've decided for this video to focus primarily on these issues, since not many people do. So, let's begin. Number 1. Jeremy fucking sucks! I can't stand his character. He's awful. He's annoying, he's creepy, he fails at his job at being the comic relief, and frankly, with a little story retooling, you could have written him out of the story entirely. He's pointless. Oh, but he saves Mrs. Brisby's life when Dragon attacks. Yeah, after being the one who alerts Dragon to them in the first place. Oh, but he takes her to the Great Owl. How would she have gotten there without Jeremy? Simple. Have the tree be in the yard and have Mrs. Brisby walk to the damn tree. Oh, but the strings. What about the strings? Who cares? Yeah, Jeremy's fucking pointless. When a character's presence can be completely erased from a movie by slight little tweaks to the story, then it might just be best to remove the character entirely. And yeah, I know he was in the book, but Jenner was barely in the book, and yet his role in the movie was widely expanded upon. But I'll talk more about that later. Jeremy at times honestly kind of creeped me out, and I really wasn't a fan of it.
I just thought I'd mention in passing. I've always wanted a sparkly of my very own.
Dude, This is Pepe Le Pew if he acted more like that incel from Tall Girl.
So you're gonna spend the rest of your life waiting until you are her type?
If that's what it takes, then yeah.
Dude! Super creepy. Jeremy just isn't funny, and frankly, whenever he pops up, he brings the movie's pacing to a complete halt. And what I see on the screen, like I said before, makes me violently angry. He's not as bad as characters like Stanley or Giacomo, but considering that his presence brings down what is ultimately a really good movie, hopefully you guys will understand why I actually hate this character more than those guys. Yes, you heard me. Again, he's not as bad as those characters, but with movies like A Troll in Central Park, you know what to expect. But in this movie, it's completely different. Oh wow, this movie's so cool. It's got a dark story with a great atmosphere. It doesn't shy away from themes like death and evolution and morality. And now the fucking crow is back making weird passes on a widow who's a mouse. And I frankly don't like what I'm looking at. Seriously though, fuck Jeremy. And number 2, and this is honestly the bigger one, Jenner is a weak as hell villain and I really wish he wasn't in the movie. In the original book, he actually had a very small role, only being mentioned in passing and even being hinted at dying somewhere else. Like in the movie, Jenner doesn't agree with the plan to leave the farm for Thorn Valley, as he believes they have everything they need to survive there on the farm. However, in the novel, Jenner just up and leaves with a couple of followers, only to be brought up later in the climax of the book where, after trying to steal a motor from a hardware store, ends up getting electrocuted and dying. So, yeah, like I said earlier, his role has been expanded upon in the movie. However, if you're gonna do that, then how about you actually do that? Now, don't get me wrong, I've heard all of the defenses for this character and what he's supposed to represent. I get why they kept Jenner around for the film so that there could be a bit more of an action-oriented climax, but he's also supposed to represent the fear of change. The overall theme of the film revolves around evolution and morality, becoming better than where you've come from.
My child, we can no longer live as rats. We know too much.
The majority of the rats believe that in order to become a better society, they can no longer live as rats, and thus need to evolve and become better than that. But Jenner believes there's no need, as all of the resources they need to survive is literally a walk away. Save for the cat dragon, they pretty much have it made there, or so he thinks. Now, in theory, I actually like this idea. It sounds really clever to try and explore another perspective of a situation, even if it's wrong in the end. There's a reason why we're still studying the Nazis after all these years. They were evil, sure, but it's still fascinating history nonetheless. However, my problem with Jenner isn't what he represents, but rather the stuff that he's supposed to represent is actually more deep than the actual character himself. I like how Jenner was really subtle with his evil intentions at first, sneaking around, whispering to his partner and stuff like that, but in the end of the movie, he just loses his shit and goes, yo, this bitch be trippin', I'm gonna shank a bitch. Like, he's supposed to represent another perspective entirely, but as a character goes, he's pretty one note, having very little personality outside of,
I've learned this much. Take what you can, when you can.
And never having his perspective fully analyzed. When you think about it, Jenner does have good reasons for not wanting to leave the farm, outside of just being the bad guy and nothing else. Resources are literally right next door. They can keep drugging Dragon if they need to. Plus, Jenner's made it clear that he has no hesitation when it comes to using violence. But outside of this one scene involving the council where he tries to make his case, after that scene, it's all pretty much thrown out the window and Jenner just becomes an asshole because the movie, with incredibly dark themes overall, suddenly just needs a villain to fight, I guess. Okay, now let me make this clear. Jenner can try to kill Nicodemus and even succeed in the end if he wants to. But when the book brought up Jenner, it brought up how he believed what he was doing was the right thing. Sure, it got him killed in the end, but the book painted him as simply believing everyone else was wrong. It was a matter of perspective. So for me, when this movie brings up these really interesting themes of evolution, morality, and society, I feel like having Jenner suddenly become this one-dimensional threat in the end just kind of muddles that a bit. Like, why not have him fight for the rats, but so that they can stay there at the farm? Even after killing Nicodemus, Jenner should have still fought for what the rats already owned, not to take what you can when you can. Maybe have Jenner evolve in his own unique way, a way that contrasts to the other rats. And when he betrays them by killing Nicodemus, it provokes a very serious question within the rats as to whether wanting to evolve was even worth it in the end. Like, was their desire to grow and become better the real reason why Nicodemus died? Does growing and changing society always lead to such serious consequences? Like, I know I might possibly be reading too much into this, but isn't that why this movie is so beloved? Because it stirs conversations like this? I feel like there was a way to really make Jenner a great animated villain. One of the best even that could have totally blown Disney away. But instead, we got a guy who, out of nowhere, suddenly tries to murder everyone his way, which kind of reduces the intricate and complex themes of this movie into nothing more than a typical black and white fight of good versus evil. But yeah, those are my two main issues with the movies. I got a few other smaller problems with this movie, but these are honestly nitpicks, but I'm gonna bring them up because why not? I think the kids are kind of annoying, although to be fair, they're only in like 3 scenes, so they don't really bother me all that much.
Teresa! Martin! Auntie's afraid.
She's not afraid, she's dead! Also, does anyone else think it's kind of weird how the rat civilization feels very medieval-ish? Like, Knights of the Round Table-ish? I don't know, it's just that we live in a modern world, or modern for 1982, and yet the rats are dressing up like they're at the Ren Fair. Also, they're using swords, and they have powdered wigs. Like, seriously, what's up with that? Look, I'm not saying they need to be building rockets to the moon, but maybe they'd be a little more advanced than this? Like, they should at least have, like, guns, right? Like, muskets and pistols at least. And of course, and I think this is pretty inevitable, let's talk about the magical element. So, yeah, the magic is honestly okay with me until the very end. In the movie, magic just kind of exists, and everyone just kind of accepts it. But for me, personally, since the magic's just kind of there and doesn't play this giant role in the story, I'm willing to accept it's there just because it's cool and nothing else, okay? So, yeah, the magical stone, great name by the way, is a bullshit deus ex machina that magically just fixes everything in the end, and I'm not the biggest fan of it. Again, I feel like with some minor tweaking of the story, you could have really made the stone work, but the way it is, it honestly just feels like a lazy way out to me. The book didn't have any form of magic and solely relied on the scientific stuff. So I guess you can make an argument that the magical element does kind of undermine all of the science and stuff in the movie. But outside of the deus ex machina, in the end, the magic doesn't bother me all that much. Maybe you could make an argument about it? But outside of these issues though, The Secret of NIMH is still a fantastic movie to check out. But if you're watching this video, chances are you probably already know that. I didn't want this review to just be another, oh watch it, it's Don Bluth's masterpiece, you're gonna love it, oh good lord. Instead, I wanted to focus on how this movie really could have been the perfect masterpiece that people have built it up to be over the years. But overall, I still think it's great, like definitely an 8 out of 10 for me. But since I didn't see that many people bringing up the flaws in this film, I thought maybe I could bring those to light. But hey, this movie still boasts incredible animation, mostly likable characters, a great dark story, the score is great, it's just all around great. Just not perfect like everyone keeps saying it is. But hey, what is a perfect film anyway? But hey, I heard there was a sequel to this film. Hey, maybe they were able to improve upon the original in some way. Maybe they built upon the themes of the first movie and expanded in a way that makes this movie look stupid. Hell, maybe the sequel...
You'll be happy, nice and happy, if you just say yes!
God fucking damn it!
Heaven just knows what it was. Will I go back to the place where I belong? Everyone